And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show. It really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show for today. All right, so our second segment is going to be about the man, Mason Miller, who I've talked a lot about on the show for good reason. One of the big stories of baseball this entire year, has really become, I'd say, a superstar within baseball with how well he's performed. And it's kind of hard to do when you're on a team like the A's, who are a small market team, who are also awful. So, yeah, coming up towards the trade deadline here, there's been a lot of discussion about Mason Miller and, honestly, if the A's should trade him or not. These conversations are just going to come up naturally because of a few reasons. Mason Miller is a very good player, and he's on a horrible team. So whenever that happens, no matter what age you are, no matter what, how many years of control you have, it's just going to happen. It always happens. And you throw a wrench in this as well because Miller's a closer, and closers simply are, reusable. You can get a closer you can get some garbage relief pitcher for cheap, see something in him, and make him a great closer. I mean, a lot of teams have done that. I mean, simply want to look at the Yankees. Clay Holmes was a throwaway on the Pirates, traded for him for nothing. And now he's a top closer in the league. Evan Phillips of the Dodgers, a Rays throwaway, who is now a top closer in the league for the Dodgers. So there's a lot of ways to get a closer in this league, and because of that, because of relief pitchers and closers as well being so, I guess, reusable. And I'm trying to think of the right word to say. But, in that way, I think it's interesting to look at the situation. Now, I'm going to let you know if I think Mason Miller should or shouldn't be traded, give my thoughts overall, and then also some teams that I think he could work on if I do think he should be traded. Now, first question we have to ask is, do I think the A's should trade Mason Miller? Now, this might be a hot take, and I understand that, but my answer is the A's should trade him tomorrow. Now, let me explain why. So, usually I'm not in favor of this. Usually when there's a great young player on a bad team who's in trade conversations like this, I usually say, no. If you're a young team, you want to have someone to build around. You want to be able to have someone you can look at and say, that guy's the face of this franchise, that guy's someone we're going to build around. I don't see a point in trading him. The reason this is different with Mason Miller, in my opinion, is simply because he's a closing pitcher. Again, closing pitchers and relief pitchers are very volatile. They can be great one year, horrible one year. I mean, just look at Edwin Diaz. Look at how he's performing this year. Granted, he has been much better, but still, you look at his career arc as well. I mean, he's a prime example of this. Josh Hader, who signed a big contract with the Astros and, frankly, has been a pretty big disaster. So, I think when you have closing pitchers, you have to look at it that way. They are very good. I think Mason Miller, to be honest, is going to stay being very good. But at the same time, it's just, if you're an A's fan, if you're organization, if you're looking at the A's organization, Mason Miller, while he's a great player, simply put, throws one inning. And he doesn't even throw one inning every day. He throws it only when the A's are in a close game or winning. And that's not even every day. So he throws maybe one inning 60 days a year. And that's kind of it. So the thing is, if a team's offering you a top 100 prospect or even multiple, how are you going to say no when Miller has 5 years control left and you're probably not going to be good for 3 to 4 years? By the time you're good, you're going to either have to pay Mason Miller or he's going to leave because you are as cheap as you are. This would be different if you would be able to extend him. But the fact is, you're probably not going to be competitive for at least 2 or 3 years. I'd probably even argue 4 or 5 with the way your organization is looking right now. So it doesn't make any sense because if you hold on to him, you're probably only going to get 1 year of him being the closer for a good A's team, and then he's going to leave. And I don't even know if I'd pay him, to be honest, because he is a closer. Yes, he has electric stuff. He has a ton of potential. He could even potentially move back to starting pitcher. I just don't know how likely that is. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to be able to keep Mason Miller. Like, let's say, okay, let's go over an example, all right? The Orioles. The Orioles have been connected a lot to Mason Miller for good reason. They need bullpen help. They have a ton of prospects, and Miller is young and good. So, let's say the Orioles, okay, let's go to the Orioles farm system, for example, okay? They have a lot of good players. Now, let's say they don't offer any top 100 prospects because they have a lot of good top 100 prospects, but they aren't exactly, they're too high, I'd say, for Mason Miller. And you're not going to trade Basallo or Mayo or especially Holiday for Mason Miller. But let's say they offer someone like Enrique Bradfield, Connor Norby, and Dylan Beavers. Let's say they offer 2 out of those 3. Throw in a major league player who is good but doesn't have a spot in their team. Are you going to say no to that for a closing pitcher? Let's say you go to the Dodgers, okay? Dodgers are a team that have also been connected very heavily to Mason Miller. They need relief pitching. They need relief help always. And Mason Miller is a star, and the Dodgers like collecting stars. It makes a lot of sense, I'd say. So, let's say they offer Dalton Rushing, top catching prospect, 23 years old, 47 top prospect on the MLB.com list. Has great stats here at AA. Can be up, I'd say, maybe at the end of this year if you really want to push him. If not, starting catcher next year. And if you're saying, oh, we have enough depth to catcher with guys like Shane Langoliers, you can move him to first base, move him somewhere else. Just you get his bat. Let's say they offer him, or let's say they offer Josue De Paula, a 19-year-old outfielder who has a great lefty swing, is an A-plus ball, can be up in the later part of 2025, top part of 2026. You get to control him until, let's say he's up at 2026 to 2032, 2033. You're going to say no to getting a top prospect like that with the years control he has, who's coming up right when you'll be competitive, for a guy who throws 1 inning. Now, again, I'm not trying to discredit Mason Miller's value or his abilities. I think he's very, very good. But the fact is, you look at this A's team, you look at how far off they are, you look at just what position Mason Miller is at, it's a question you have to answer. And I just don't think I don't think if a team offers you a really good prospect, 1 or 2, maybe even 3, you can say no to that. There's a lot of teams I think would really fit with Mason Miller. Not a lot that would get it done with prospects, but at the same time, if I'm the A's, I'm taking advantage of Mason Miller, getting some prospects here to help out with this future. I mean, maybe the Phillies want to trade for him. There's been some rumors that they aren't happy with the job Jose Alvarado is doing at closer, so maybe they want to trade for him. Maybe they offer, I don't know, Justin Crawford, Starlin Caba, Mick Abel, top prospects. Maybe they offer, 2. Maybe they offer, 1 and some other guys. How do you say no to a top 100 prospect for that? A guy you really like. I just don't understand. I just don't get it. I don't think that the A's will say no. Well, no, scratch that. I think the A's will say no because I don't think they'll run very well, but I wouldn't. I think Mason Miller is a great closer, but the fact is he's at a very high injury risk because of the way he throws. He's a closing pitcher. He only throws 1 inning per game, and by the time you guys are competitive, you'll probably have to trade him because you can't pay him, because that's what your organization looks like. So if I'm the A's, I'm taking advantage of Mason Miller's value. I'm trading him at his highest value, which is now his value will never be higher, and I'm getting what I can for him. And I'm getting a full out bidding war and getting the top prospects I can. So if I'm the A's, that's what I'm doing, and very much hoping that a team will give me a bunch of prospects for him, and we really help out with this future. Now, the A's, as much as I don't think they have a great future, I still think there are some players here. I think J.P. Sears and Ken Waldichuk have some potential there at the top of your rotation. Again, I think Shea Langoliers is a nice bat for the future. I think Jacob Wilson, one of your top prospects, who you just called up, 6th overall pick from last year, is a very good top prospect for this organization that I think can show a lot of potential being a future shortstop for you guys. I think Nick Kurtz, as much as I didn't like that selection at 4th overall, I think will be a very good first baseman for you in the future. And adding in some young hitting talent or young pitching talent, whatever you want, will very much help you out. And you have to be able to look at this without emotion and say, you know what, as much as Mason Miller is a great A, he's a great pitcher, we'll be able to sell tickets in Sacramento next year, maybe in Vegas down the line, his timeline doesn't match up with where we are. And because of the position he plays, it doesn't make a lot of sense to hold on to him. And I think that's what the A's have to decide, and I think that's what they should do. If you don't trade him now, trade him in the offseason. His value will never be higher than this trade deadline and the offseason as well. That's what I'm doing if I'm the A's, and that's what I think they should do. Will they do it? I'm not exactly sure because I don't think, again, they're very well run. But at the same time, I think that's the situation you find yourselves in as the A's organization because of the timeline and because of Mason Miller's control and all that. So that is what I wanted to talk about here with Mason Miller, to trade or to not trade. And I wanted to say I'm trading him tomorrow, getting what I can, and I'm shipping him out because I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to speed run this rebuild and get some good prospects for him. So we go into our third segment, which is basically the same exact thing, but with a different player. Tarek Skubal, to trade or to not to trade. It's the same thing. A very good player on a very bad team that has had a lot of trade rumors connected to him. And a lot of people are saying they should trade him, they shouldn't, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we talk about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football.